Hey Rayleigh, and anybody else watching, and welcome back to another message from your father. Job 30 through 33 today. Now, if you remember, we were looking at Bildad, his discourse with Job. So today in 30 through 33, we're going to be looking at a continuation of Job's response to him. And then instead of one of the three friends, many people think of Job as Job talking just with his three friends. We're introduced to a fourth person, Elihu. Elihu's a pretty interesting figure because we don't see a lot of information about him. In fact, we don't really even see a response or God mentioning him when the response comes from God at the end. So, bit of an interesting figure in Elihu, but he also brings some new perspective with him as well. He's been listening this whole time, and he has stuff to say. So we will see that again starting in chapter 30. So, Job 30. And this is Job speaking right now. But now they mock me, men younger than I, whose fathers I would have disdained to put with my sheepdogs. Of what use was the strength of their hands to me, since their vigor had gone from them? Haggard from want and hunger, they roamed the parched land and desolate wastelands all night. In the brush they gathered salt herbs, and their food was the root of the broom tree. They were banished from their fellow men, shouted at as if they were thieves. They were forced to live in the dry stream beds, among the rocks and in holes and in the ground. They brayed among the bushes and hurtled in the undergrowth, a base and nameless brood. They were driven out of the land. And now their sons mock me in song. I've become a byword among them. They detest me and keep their distance. They do not hesitate to spit in my face. Now that God has unstrung my bow and afflicted me, they throw off restraint in my presence. On my right, the tribe attacks. They lay snares for my feet. They build their siege ramps against me. They break up my road. They succeed in destroying me without anyone's helping them. They advance as though through a gaping breach. Amidst the ruins, they come rolling in. Terrors overwhelm me. My dignity is driven away by the wind. My safety vanishes like a cloud. And now, my life ebbs away. Days of suffering grip me. Night pierces my bones. My gnawing pains never rest. In his great power, God becomes like clothing to me. He binds me like the neck of my garment and throws me into the mud. And I am reduced to dust and ashes. I cry out to you, O God, but you do not answer. I stand up, but you merely look at me. You turn on me ruthlessly. With the might of your hand you attack me. You snatch me up and drive me before the wind. You toss me about in the storm. I know you will bring me down to death, to the place appointed for all the living. Surely no one lays a hand on a broken man when he cries for help in distress. Have I not wept for those in trouble? Has not my soul grieved for the poor? Yet when I hoped for good, evil came. When I looked for light, then came darkness. The churning inside never stops. Days of suffering confront me. I go about blackened, but not by the sun. I stand up in the assembly and cry for help. I've become a brother of jackals, a companion of owls. My skin grows black and peels. My body burns with fever. My harp is tuned to mourning, and my flute to the sound of wailing. Chapter 31. I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a girl. For what is man's lot from God above is his heritage from the Almighty on high. Is it not ruin for the wicked, disaster for those who do wrong? Does he not see my ways and count my every step? If I have walked in falsehood or my foot has hurried after deceit, let God weigh me in honest scales, and he will know that I am blameless. If my steps have turned from the path, or if my heart has been led by my eyes, or if my hands have been defiled, then may others eat what I have sown, and may my crops be uprooted. If my heart has been enticed by a woman, or if I have lurked at my neighbor's door, then may my wife grind another man's grain, and may other men sleep with her, for that would have been shameful a sin to be judged. It is a fire that burns to destruction. It would have uprooted my harvest if I had denied justice to my menservants and maidservants when they had a grievance against me. What will I do when God confronts me? What will I answer when called to account? Did not he who made me in the womb make them? Did not the same one form us both within our mothers? If I have denied the desires of the poor, or let the eyes of the widow grow weary, if I have kept my bread to myself, not sharing it with the fatherless, but from my youth I reared him as would a father, and from my birth I guided the widow. If I have seen anyone perishing for lack of clothing, or a needy man without a garment, and his heart did not bless me for warming him with the fleece from my sheep. If I have raised my hand against the fatherless, knowing that I had an influence in court, then let my arm fall from the shoulder, or let it be broken off at the joint. For I dreaded the destruction from God, and for fear of his splendor I could not do such things. If I have put my trust in gold, or said to pure gold, you are my security, if I have rejoiced over my great wealth, the fortune my hands have gained, if I have regarded the sun and its radiance, or the moon in moving in splendor, so that my heart was secretly enticed, and my hand offered them a kiss of homage, then these also would be sins to be judged, for I would have been unfaithful to God on high. If I have rejoiced at my enemy's misfortune, or gloated over the trouble that came to him, I have not allowed my mouth to sin by invoking a curse against his life. If the men of my household have never said, who has not had his fill of Job's meat? But no stranger had to spend the night in the street, for my door was always kept open to the traveler. If I have concealed my sin as men do by hiding my guilt in my heart, because I so feared the crowd and so dreaded the contempt of the clans that I kept silent and would not go outside. Oh, that I had someone to hear me. I sign now my defense. Let the Almighty answer me. Let my accuser put his indictment in writing. Surely I would wear it on my shoulder. I would put it on like a crown. I would give him an account of my every step. Like a prince I would approach him. If my land cries out against me, and all its furrows are wet with tears, if I have devoured its yield without payment, or broken the spirit of its tenants, then let the briars come up instead of wheat, and weeds instead of barley. The words of Job are ended. Chapter 32. So these three men stopped answering Job, because he was righteous in his own eyes. But Elihu, son of Barachel the Buzite of the family of Ram, became very angry with Job for justifying himself rather than God. He was also angry with the three friends because they found no way to refute Job, and yet had condemned him. Now Elihu had waited before speaking to Job because they were older than he. But when he saw that the three men had nothing more to say, his anger was aroused. So Elihu, son of Barachel the Buzite, said, I am young in years, and you are old. That is why I was fearful, not daring to tell you what I know. I thought age should speak, advanced years should teach wisdom. But it is the spirit in a man, the breath of the Almighty, that gives him understanding. It is not only the old who are wise, not only the aged who understand what is right. Therefore I say, listen to me. I too will tell you what I know. I waited while you spoke. I listened to your reasoning while you were searching for words. I gave you my full attention, but not one of you has proved Job wrong. None of you has answered his arguments. Do not say we have found wisdom. Let God refute him, not man. But Job has not marshaled his words against me. I will not answer him with your arguments. They are dismayed and have no more to say. Words have failed them. Must I wait, now that they are silent, now that they stand there with no reply? I too will have my say. I too will tell what I know, for I am full of words, and my spirit within me compels me. Inside I am like a bottled up wine, like a new wineskin ready to burst. I must speak and find relief. I must open my lips and reply. I will show partiality to no one, nor will I flatter any man. For if I were skilled in flattery, my Maker would soon take me away. Chapter 33. But now, Job, listen to my words. Pay attention to everything I say. I am about to open my mouth. My words are on the tip of my tongue. My words come from an upright heart. My lips sincerely speak what I know. The Spirit of God has made me. The breath of the Almighty gives me life. Answer me then, if you can. Prepare yourself and confront me. I am just like you before God. I too have been taken from clay. No fear of me should alarm you, nor should my hand be heavy upon you. But you have said in my hearing, I heard the very words. I am pure and without sin. I am clean and free from guilt. Yet God has found fault with me. He considers me his enemy. He fastens my feet in shackles. He keeps close watch on all my paths. But I tell you, in this you are not right, for God is greater than man. Why do you complain to him that he answers none of man's words? For God does speak, now one way, now another, though men may not perceive it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep slumber falls on men as they speak in their beds, or as they slumber in their beds, he may speak in their ears and terrify them with warnings, to turn man from wrongdoing and keep him from pride, to preserve his soul from the pit, his life from perishing by the sword. Or a man may be chastened on a bed of pain, with constant distress in his bones, so that his very being finds food repulsive, and his soul loathes the choicest meal. His flesh wastes away to nothing, and his bones once hidden now stick out. His soul draw nearest to the pit, and his life to the messengers of death. Yet, if there is an angel on his side as a mediator, 1 out of 1,000, to tell a man what is right for him, to be gracious to him, and say, spare him from going down to the pit. I have found a ransom for him. Then His flesh is renewed like a child's. It is restored as in the days of his youth. He prays to God and finds favor with him. He seeks God's face and shouts for joy. He is restored by God to his righteous state. Then he comes to men and says, I sinned and perverted what was right, but I did not get what I deserved. He redeemed my soul from going down to the pit, and I will live to enjoy the light. God does all these things to a man, twice, even 3 times, to turn back his soul from the pit, that the light of life may shine on him. Pay attention, Job, and listen to me. Be silent, and I will speak. If you have anything to say, answer me. Speak up, for I want you to be cleared. But if not, then listen to me. Be silent, and I will teach you wisdom. So really interesting stuff. I'd said Elihu brings a really cool perspective on this. And again, we see God in the next couple chapters responding to Job and responding to his friends. He doesn't necessarily speak to Elihu, but there is some pretty good insight, at least in the Bible that I'm reading from here. So there's a small segment that says, is Elihu right? Elihu is shocked at Job's vigorous self-defense. Surely God cannot be unjust, he insists. Submit to the pain even if you don't understand it. Don't blame God. Praise him. He has shown too much of his wisdom and perfection, especially in nature, for anyone to doubt him. Elihu offers a new explanation for Job's pain. Perhaps, he suggests, God gave suffering to Job as punishment, or not as punishment, but as a purifying influence. God can use suffering to improve a person if it is received in the right spirit. So I think that's, maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse here, but I think that's something that's a great takeaway for Job. And that is my prayer for you, Rayleigh, is that when you hear stories like Job's story, where there seems to be suffering, though people are reaching out to God, that we don't immediately jump to, they are being judged, or we don't immediately jump to, God is correcting them. We see a couple different reasons why God might be doing this, but does God need to answer to us? Absolutely not. So Elihu says, who is man and who is God, that God is required to give us an answer? Absolutely nothing. And yet, he points out here as well that God's understanding may recognize that without aversion or without complication or without difficulty, our soul could be headed to the pit. If God doesn't allow us to experience hardships, are we going to be ready to face what's coming up against us in life, or will we immediately give up? I mean, I always think of those trees that were grown in these biodomes, these like huge glass domes. And these trees, they didn't live long enough to get big enough to produce enough oxygen for the dome, right? Because trees take oxygen, or take carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. But these trees, when they would get a certain height, all the trees would just fall over inside this dome, inside this big experiment that they were doing. And they were trying to figure out why. Well, eventually they saw the root system when these trees were coming up, and it was just a ball of roots. And it was because there was no wind. There was nothing pushing against those trees to where the tree would settle in the soil and the roots would grow further. And the tree would get blown again and the roots would go further. So when strong winds came, the trees could withstand it. But if the trees didn't have any of that aversion as they grew up, any of that wind, they don't have the root structure. They don't have the foundation. So that's why our foundation needs to be in Christ. And that's where that faith comes so much into play, and faith in action, acting that out, because God could be using that adversity for very, very good reasons. Even though it's difficult now, no pain or correction is great while it's happening, but it could produce that renewing of the spirit, or this very salvation of our souls. So anyway, know that I love you. That's my prayer for you, that you remember that. I love you so much. And anyone else that's watching, know, as always, that I appreciate you so much as well. And I'll plan on seeing you tomorrow. Have a good one.